Boulevard of Broken Dreams was the first film undertaken by my production company, Boulevard Films. You know, being brought up as a child in St Kilda, working class background, most of the movies that I was influenced by were American movies. They were really all you saw at the matinees during that period. You know, I grew up watching John Ford, How Green Was My Valley, An Affair to Remember, all of the great filmmakers, and all of the great American genres of films. I didn't believe that making a genre film was a dirty word, but when Boulevard came out, there were a lot of critics in Australia who didn't get it because I guess it was different for an Australian film at that time. In Australia, most of our films up till then were very dry emotionally. They were as dry as the outback. Also, there was not a lot of erotic movies in those times, and I attempted to address that with a later film I did called Hunting. Boulevard of Broken Dreams was, I guess, very influenced by also my love of F. Scott Fitzgerald, and I'd been reading one of his short stories called Babylon Revisited, which was about a father attempting to reconcile with his child. Although Boulevard of Broken Dreams doesn't follow that story, the mood of the piece greatly influenced me. So when I came to write it, they were the forces that shaped the end product. I grew up not having a prejudice against tearjerkers. I was later to find out that a lot of reviewers, they hate tearjerkers. They hate anything that's over-emotional. Maybe that's more revealing about themselves than about the films. I'm not sure, I'm not their psychiatrist. Having a total open mind to all genres of movies. You know, to me, it doesn't matter, you know, what genre you are making. The question should be, what did you set out to make and did you achieve it? We needed a name to help with the financing. It was suggested that we approach John Waters, so I approached John and he read the script and loved it. John, you know, I'd known over the years, and so it was important to get somebody of that caliber involved, and Penelope Stewart was an actress that I'd seen in several different miniseries and that over the years. She also had a small part in a film I co-written called Backstage. So I knew Penelope's work, and I thought she'd be perfect in that. I wanted somebody in that role who wasn't somebody that the public was used to in a lot of other big Australian films, and they didn't carry the baggage of being too much of an identity in their own right. So I wanted somebody that was totally believable in the role of Helen Garfield. Nikki Paul was an actress that I've known since she was about 16, and she was in a play that I wrote called Sinbad, which was performed at the Athenaeum Theatre in Melbourne. She was somebody that I think had great charisma on camera, and as well as, you know, being a terrific performer. And then for the final part, Kim Gingell to play Tom Garfield's old buddy. And Kim and I had known each other for about 20 years through the music business, and also we'd appeared on an ABC series called 20 Good Years, and we'd both been actors on that show. And, you know, it was always fun to talk to Kim, and we shared the same sense of humour. And I think the ensemble acting in Boulevard of Broken Dreams is something that, you know, I'm very proud of. And it won John Waters the Best Actor Award at the AFIs, and it won Kim Gingell the Best Supporting Actor Award. So, you know, my belief in those two people and those two actors was proven. And even though the casting director at the time advised me not to cast John and not to cast Kim, loyalty to those two guys, because I believe they were so right, I stuck by my guns and stuck by them, and the rest is history. So, you know, it's very easy in this industry to go against your instinct or to be talked into something, and you know, it's you know, be to thyself, be true. My business partner and I knocked on a lot of doors, hoping that some established producers would give us some advice. But unfortunately, what we found was a closed shop. There were a lot of fat cat producers who had made a fortune out of 10BA, but had made some lousy films that didn't get released in Australia, let alone anywhere else. And insecurity in one's own talent leads you to be uncharitable to others. As Hemingway once said, hawks do not share. Unfortunately, I think the industry is suffering now because those people never encouraged anyone. One wonders how many talented people just gave up and went away, never to return. Anyway, I'm proud that once we broke through the barrier, we gave 7 directors their first chance to direct a movie, several editors their first movie to cut, costume designers, music composers, and many actors got their first movie appearance in a Boulevard film and then went on to become international names. Of course, we became successful and were making lots of movies, and these same uncharitable producers condemned us for using 10BA. Hypocritically, they had all used the same tax incentive, so their beef wasn't us using 10BA, it was the fact that we offered our investors a more generous deal, and we were getting all the investment and not them. Sour grapes. And of course, even though they tried to turn the industry against us, we sold our movies all over the world. The first Australian film ever sold to Miramax was one of ours. First Australian film ever sold to the American Broadcasting Corporation was one of ours. We went on to sell our movies to Paramount, to Disney, to Warner's, to J&M Entertainment, to Skiros, and on and on and on. So, I guess that was salt into their wounds. Fortunately, most of them are gone now, or they're living in a chateau in France, or dead and living in Brunswick, I don't know. But our break came when we knocked on Malcolm Olivestone's door. Malcolm was a broker and a financier in Sydney, so my business partner and I flew up there with the little money we had, and I pitched Malcolm my film about the life of the Australian boxer Les Darcy. I'd spent years on this film, and my pitch was very passionate and emphasised all the drama, the spectacle, the political intrigue. So Malcolm said, no, it's a period film, and they're too expensive. What else do you have? Maybe something that could be done for $1 million. I paused and took a deep breath and then said, well, I do have another one, actually. It's called Boulevard of Broken Dreams, and it's about an Australian writer who has become a big success on Broadway and in Hollywood. And after 10 years, he returns to Australia to reconcile with his family and to seek redemption for all the people he walked over to become a success. And Malcolm said, oh, I love that. When can I see the script? I said, well, we'll get back to Melbourne and I'll send it to you before the end of the week. So anyway, we walked out of Malcolm's office and my business partner turned to me and said, how come you've never shown me that script? To which I replied, I haven't written it yet. And so anyway, I worked for the next 4 or 5 days, day and night, and in one long stream of consciousness, I wrote the script. Anyway, I sent the script to Malcolm by week's end, and he read it and thought it was the best script he'd been associated with, and we had a deal. Anyway, Malcolm set about to raise the budget, and my partner and I, we needed Film Victoria to pick up the non-deductibles, which is the things that like legal fees and things that are not covered by the 10BA tax exemption. We didn't think that this would be a problem, as for a relatively small outlay, Film Victoria would be guaranteeing another movie and all the associated jobs for Victoria. Anyway, Greg Tepper, head of Film Victoria at that time, phoned me to say that they were declining our application. I asked why, And he replied, because it's a tearjerker. And I said, so you don't like the script? And he said, no, we on the contrary, I think it's a well-written script, but it's a tearjerker. So I said, let me get this straight. You are knocking us back because you don't like the genre of movie it is. And he said, yes. So anyway, my business partner and I, we frantically mortgaged everything we owned, and maybe a few things we didn't own, and we put up the money ourselves. I guess that gave me a bad taste about approaching the government about anything. And then years later, when I was living in Los Angeles, I went to the Australian consul and pitched them an idea about this week-long festival to incorporate everything Australian and be a showcase for everything Australian. Anyway, they loved it so much, they took the idea and have never credited me for it. So, yeah, that's me through with the government. Anyway, Film Victoria phoned me when Boulevard of Broken Dreams had been nominated for 7 AFI awards, including Best Film, and asked if they could take out a full-page ad in Encore congratulating me and the film on being such a wonderful, successful Melbourne production, to which I replied, no you can't. I needed your help then, I don't need your help now. So there were certainly a lot of people scrambling to jump on the bandwagon once this film had started to get some heat and get some attention. It's, I'll probably be blacklisted for saying this, but you know what, I'm too old to give a damn. And I'm probably blacklisted anyway. Interestingly, when this film eventually got sold all over the world, it was always seen as a very sensitive and thought-provoking movie, but in its hometown, or its homeland, some of the reviews were just astounding, vitriolic and personal on a couple of, in a couple of cases, personal to the point where I probably could have sued. It was most of the reviews reeked of who the hell are these guys to think that they can just come in and take over the industry, because we'd already announced that we had another 5 films we were planning to make. On reflection, we probably shouldn't have released that information at that point in time, because I think a lot of people had their noses out of joint that our first film hadn't even come out yet, and we were making plans to make other films, so it probably made people think that we were very arrogant. We weren't arrogant, we were probably young and ambitious, but again, in Australia at that time, that was probably not an asset. We copped a lot of flack for it being a sentimental movie. I always felt that if I'd have actually put on the credits based on F. Scott Fitzgerald's Babylon Revisited, we probably would have gotten better reviews. Terrible indictment, but never underestimate the snob value in the industry. We got savvy, and then, but the interesting thing is that the public came, and the public really responded to this movie. They loved it. People overseas loved it. I think this film has been sold in just about every territory in the world that there is. So it was, a very, very successful movie, and enabled us to be able to go on and make a lot of other films. I always think it's quite ironic that there was such a disparity, or such a distance between what the industry thought, the people, the technical people, the people who vote at the AFIs, that the people who view the film and know technically actually what you've done and what you put into this movie, voted us to be best film, voted for us to be nominated for best actor, best supporting actor, best costume, best cinematography, best direction, and so on and so on. And yet, a lot of the critics, just didn't get it. And if it had been a foreign film and it had been subtitles, if this had been a film that had come from France or it had come from Italy, I think if a lot of the same critics that condemned this would have actually gone, what a sensitive, emotional movie. Because I think we're used to seeing emotion, or we were used to seeing emotion in European movies. We weren't used to seeing it in the home product. Sentimentality and critics never really go in the same sentence anyway. 12 months after Boulevard was released, Gary Marshall, a man who actually encouraged me with Boulevard of Broken Dreams, directed a film called Beaches. And Beaches went on to be one of the big hits of all time. And some of the same critics that had savaged Boulevard of Broken Dreams, an Australian product, turned around and said, at last we have a tearjerker. Isn't this wonderful? It's a return to romance. Sometimes, regrettably, I think we're harder on our own product than we are with overseas product. Things fortunately have changed in the industry. At that time, the mid to late 80s was the dark ages, I think, as far as Australian films were concerned. So anyway, and that's certainly how I view a movie. I like all genres of movie. I like romance, I like political intrigues, I like comedies, I like horror movies. I think you pick what movies you go to, like you pick what music you want to listen to, depending on what mood you're in. Sometimes you want something thought-provoking and provocative. Other times you just want something to pass a few hours with in amusement and eating popcorn. It always fascinates me or intrigues me when people only are into one bag or one catalogue or category of something. And you know, I feel sorry for those people because I think they cut themselves off from a lot. I always look at a movie as to, you know, regardless of the genre, is how well did you do it? And you know, I'm pleased to say that there are a lot of filmmakers now, young filmmakers, who, you know, that making genre movies is no longer a dirty word. We've had some great horror films. We've had things like Wolf Creek. We've had the guys who did Saw. We have a lot of, you know, kids who are not scared to tackle a genre and give it their best shot. And I think that's exciting. I think a healthy industry, you've got to represent all facets of entertainment. And there's my ambulance. My ride's here. Anyway, this is the film called Boulevard of Broken Dreams. It is a story of a man who is not only trying to find his family, but also himself. And I think most of us along the way at some point or time can identify with that. Boulevard of Broken Dreams, I hope you enjoy.